Last night I was really sick. My son had been sick 2 days before, and I drank out of his water cup yesterday. 3-4 hours later, I was getting sick myself. And it was like a cycle. I would get sick, then I would feel better, and like violently sick. Lay down, sleep for like an hour and a half or so, wake up completely nauseous for 20 minutes, and then get sick again. And that went through 5 rounds. And the whole time, I was so consumed with how disgusting I felt. I mean, I didn't think to pray. And after the 5th round, I was exhausted. I was like wanting to cry. I felt horrible. And I just cried out to God. I finally remembered I should pray about this. And I prayed and I asked God to not let me get sick again. And sure enough, I went to sleep and I did not get sick again. But before I went to bed, God said to me, the scripture, we know in part. We know in part. The scripture from 1 Corinthians 13. Where there is knowledge, it will vanish away. For we know in part and we prophesy in part. But then, when that which is perfect has come, then that which is in part will be done away. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall know, just as I also am known. And now abide faith, hope, love, these 3. But the greatest of these is love. So when God said, I know in part, I knew what the scripture was, prophecy in part, have knowledge in part. You know, even in terms of my own ministry, I only know in part. I only know what God has shown me. And I try to be faithful to share with you what God has shown me. But I don't know everything. I only know in part. But so he said last night, we only know in part. And tonight, I was scrolling through my YouTube and my testimony came up from like 5-6 years ago. I was asked to go out to Utah and give my testimony. And they made a video, and I didn't have much of a testimony back then, just how I'd been saved, and I talked a little bit about my life. I talked a little bit about my children, and I was still going through the divorce then, so I talked a little bit about that. And then I checked the comments, and there was a comment from somebody very concerned about me, asking the pastor to check up on me or to call someone about me. And what that was about was, I've said it on my channel, October 2018. I had it coming from both sides, as it were, just like last night, both sides. I mean, TMI, but it applies. I was getting bombarded by the enemy, and I have the gift of discerning of spirits. I had had it for like 5 years up until that point. So like being aware of the enemy, those spirits, I'm aware of them. So the enemy was throwing everything he had at me. But God, at the same exact time, was teaching me everything I would need to know for now. He taught me like so much. Basically gave me understanding of like everything I would need to know. But to the outside world watching my YouTube channel, because God taught me about time. And then guess what I did? I got on my YouTube channel and I tried to teach them what God had just taught me. So all day long, I was making videos for like 3 months, or not 3 months, 3 weeks, like 3-4 weeks. I was making like 10, 12 videos a day. And from the outside looking in, I was having a total bipolar breakdown. But we know in part, right? We know in part. What nobody understood was what God was allowing to happen. Was kind of like, I mean, they didn't die, but my children went to my ex-husband when I got put in the hospital. 2 weeks, then 2 weeks outpatient, then they put me back in for 2 weeks, then 2 weeks outpatient. So I lost my children, I lost my house, I lost my job, and everybody in my life thought I had gone totally crazy, right? When I was making all the videos, I mean, I was making videos as object lessons. I was literally acting out the entirety of the revelation, but nobody understood me because I was speaking so fast. My brain was processing like a computer. I mean, what God was downloading to me, it was so fast. It was too fast. And I had somebody reach out to me and say, God told me to tell you to stop. And you know what I told them? I said, liar. I knew God was completely in control of what I was going through. I knew that much. And when I was brought into the hospital, I was surrounded by angels. Surrounded. I was in so much protection. There was so much protection around me. All right. So I get out of the hospital and I reach out to like everyone I know. And for the most part, no one reached out to me. Or they went and blabbed to everybody what I'd gone through. In one instance, under the guise of being religious and concerned. But they did not understand the scripture that says, love covers a multitude of sin. What I just read to you about knowing in part, they had no clue. They had no clue that God had ordained what I went through. They had no clue. They were like Job's friends. Oh, Job, you must have done this. Oh, Job, it must be this way. Having had no idea that Satan went up to God and said, what about? And God said, he's not gonna, right? What's the story? And God allowed Satan to come after Job. Did Job curse God? Nope. And was everything restored back to Job? Plus some? Yep. But did the people around him at the time understand that it was the hand of God on his life? Nope. So the beginning of the scripture tonight, love never fails. Love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself, is not puffed up, does not behave rudely, does not seek its own, is not provoked, thinks no evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth, bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. And then how random to go into speaking about, but where there are prophecies, they will fail. Where there are tongues, they will cease. Where there is knowledge, it will vanish away. For we know in part and we prophesy in part. All right. Yeah, so nobody knew what I was going through. And love, did I receive love? I had some family members show up who weren't even followers of Christ, who did show me love. But the church? Nope. Nope. Not really. Not really. But going through that experience, not only, I was humbled. I was humbled. I struggled with shame for a long time. Even seeing that comment today from the person who told my pastor to check on me, that person never reached out to me. Seeing that comment was like a little bit of like a sting. I was like, oh, because that was such on the one hand, like the best thing that ever happened to me. And on the other hand, the most horrible thing that ever happened to me. It was both. It was both. But God, right? God was totally in control. And He brought me out the other end. And He's restored me. The hope I have in His restoration is so great. The trust I have in Him is so great. The love I have in my heart that has only come from Him is so great. And I wouldn't have these things if I hadn't gone through what I'd gone through. The thing that nobody understood was a God thing, because they only see in part. Now, if we had more people who could see with the heart of God, wouldn't that be amazing? I've got a loved one in my life who's struggling right now. And I'm able to see the restoration that God is going to bring into their life. So when I speak to them, I'm able to speak to them from a place of hope and of knowing that God is going to bring them through it. So, Corinthians 13:13, and now abide faith, hope, love, these three, but the greatest of these is love. God bless you.